You're listening to Power Talks with Beth Ann and Melody Cedarstrom in the morning, where talk is real, truth is in the talk, and there is power, absolute power in truth. You know, they say truth will set you free, and we believe that power and truth when we talk. And you're welcome. It's Friday. How are you doing this morning, Melody?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much. Good morning to you, and good morning to our listeners.
Absolutely. Well, it's Friday. It is Friday. We heading into TGIF. We are heading into a weekend. There's quite a bit of news breaking here this morning that I don't have a lot of details on, but we can kind of give an opinion on some of what's going on. And we're heading into a weekend. You know, tomorrow is it's a big deal here in California, Missouri. It's the Ham and Turkey Festival.
That just cracks me up.
Our two main industries here sponsor it, and one is Cargill with the turkeys, and the other one, if you've never checked it out, is Burger Smokehouse. And I shouldn't give them a free plug because they don't advertise, but it is Burger Smokehouse, and they do the old cure of the country hams, and they have all kinds of different cures of the hams. But if you really like that old-time country ham, they have the best, and that is true. They have the best. Well, they sponsor this, and it's, you know, they have crafters and business and all. And the whole street is lined up out here in front of my window of my store, of my office and studio. And I don't do this every year, but this year I'm going to have a booth out front of the studio, and I'm going to be playing parts of the show, and I'm going to sing a few patriotic songs and try to sell a few books and get some revenue out of that. A few books. I didn't write a book. We got to write a book, Melody. Everybody writes a book. And anyway, so I just can put a plug. So come to California, Missouri tomorrow morning, and you'll get to meet me and lots of other people, and it's a good time. It's a good time.
Well, I believe we're not going to be here on Sunday.
No.
But I do believe that it is another important day on Sunday, in addition to your ham and turkey day on Saturday.
It is.
This is not quite as important, but
come on now.
But I believe the signing of the Declaration.
It's Constitution Day.
Yes.
Constitution Day.
September 17th, 1787. So.
I don't have that book in here that I was telling you about yesterday. Doggone it, I'm going to have to bring it in. I think I've got it at the house. But it has a story in there of all the a revolutionary story, and it's got history. And Melody and I were talking about doing a history segment. So we'd like to hear from you, see what you think of that. 717-300-1218. But it talked about how old Ben Franklin was by the time they signed the Constitution. Of course, you know about his you know, how he called them to prayer. And it said when he signed the Constitution in this book, I mean, it really got to me, Melody. It said the old man wept. It had been a long time. He was getting up in the years. I want to say that the book said he was 80-something, but I can't remember for sure on the age. But so Sunday is Constitution Day. I don't know how many people really understand the significance of that, but it's a big deal in this nation, and.
Absolutely. And it was the signing of the United States Constitution occurred on September 17th. 39 delegates to the Constitutional Convention and endorsed the Constitution that was created during the convention. So, yeah, it is a...
huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge. And with some of the news that I have, you know, it just relates to globalism. It relates to... certainly things that the Founding Fathers probably wouldn't approve.
You think? Things I was going through this morning and reading these. Now, come on. Nancy Pelosi said the Founding Fathers would want Obamacare. Anyway, she's such a dweeb. Anyway, I was going through the headlines this morning, Melody, and I'm looking, and it's almost heartbreaking. Well, it is heartbreaking. But all these protests and rioting against free speech, thinking that's for free speech. And they are absolutely insane. And the comic strip, which I don't know if you want to talk about it on this show or not. I'm going to bring it to the listeners of CSC Talk Radio here in the next hour. But, the comic strip was Superman. And he's no longer an American. He is a defender of the globe, I guess. And I'm trying to find it here real quick. And anyway, they've got him defending. I don't know how I lose my papers when I walk in here. I stack them. There it is. I stack them up. I always said I really like Captain America better anyway, but he's no longer an American citizen, and they've got him defending immigrants against a white supremacist who's shooting because he lost his job to illegal immigrants. And it's absolutely ridiculous how far away from truth and understanding of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and how the Bill of Rights came to be with this Constitution. That was the art of the deal with James Madison. He didn't think the Constitution went far enough, and never trusted. In fact, he didn't really want it. He didn't want. I guess he would be more of a libertarian of that day. He didn't trust anybody in charge, and I can see why they would feel that way. And so that's how that came to be. But they don't understand. They don't get it. They don't know what a republic and a democracy and socialism and communism. They don't understand what those really are, and so they're fighting for. They don't even know what they're fighting for, but they want everything given to them, and they want to feel good, and it's so sad. It really is so sad.
It really is. I mean, to stand up for what you believe and so forth, that's the right that we've been given. But you have to understand what you're standing up for. And
they don't know what they're standing against.
And freedom of speech really is, it's just not about the things that are good things. You have to listen to the bad things too, because they do have that right. And while you're bringing that up, I did this on my program yesterday afternoon. Nearly 4 in 10 Americans can't name any First Amendment rights. This was a recent poll that was conducted by the University of Pennsylvania, and it found that the residents of the United States are poorly informed. Well, we know that. We tell you that every day. But this newly released survey suggests that Americans cannot name a single right protected by the First Amendment. So this was done by Penn's Annenberg Public Policy Center. It was actually released Tuesday, and 37% could not name any of the 5 rights protected by the First Amendment. And just about half, 48%, could name freedom of speech. In addition, the survey found that 33% of those polled were unable to name one of the 3 branches of the U.S. government. And so when we talk about, people not knowing what they're standing up and doing and really understanding what they're saying is...
Do they not teach it in school anymore? We had to pass a test before we could ever graduate. We had to pass the test of the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Missouri before we could ever graduate. Mm-hmm. Do they not do that anymore? I guess not. California, you don't even have to take a test. You don't have to pass anything to get, just get a participation diploma, I guess. We're really dumbing down in the United States. We're really dumbing down. I cannot believe that, and of course they believe that the freedom of speech means you can just insult one another. That's not what that's about. No. And but that's you watch these people and you listen to them, and I mentioned it to you, and I'm sure you saw the news here. I think it was a year ago when they it was a spoof, and they went. It's been over a year ago. A spoof when they went into one of the, and I think I want to say it was Harvard. I'm not sure which university it was, and they were having a petition signed, and it was a joke to repeal the First Amendment. And how many students were willing to sign that? Yes, because I don't think you should hurt other people's feelings. So you're signing a petition that says you can never sign a petition again. basically.
I know.
Because it says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or the press or the right of the people peaceably. That doesn't mean knocking down statues and destroying property. Peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So they signed that all away. They're willing to sign that all away. Because they're ignorant. They're ignorant. And I don't mean that in an ugly way. I mean that in a truthful way. They're ignorant of what we stand for here in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. And I would rather have Captain America on my side than Superman. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Not Wonder Woman.
Well, yeah, Wonder Woman. I would take Wonder Woman as long as she's an American. If she's gonna go globalist like Superman, I might have to drop her.
Have a problem with
I'd have to have a little talk with her. I might have to take her to tea.
When we're talking about globalism, Obama is going to host his first global summit in Chicago. This is going to happen in October. He's going to welcome civic leaders from around the world to a summit hosted by the Obama Foundation next month, which is October, and it's designed to empower young people to create change. This October, we're bringing together hundreds of leaders from all over the world for a hands-on exchange of ideas in my hometown, the city of Chicago. Well, let's hope nobody gets shot.
Oh, gosh.
But it's a 2 days.
Well, they'll probably have plenty of security there. But
what's interesting? Here, the 2-day summit is going to take place October 31st.
Well, isn't that interesting?
It's a 2-day summit, so it's going to be October 31st is the first day. Isn't that interesting?
Mm.
I don't believe in coincidences. I just don't. Rarely do coincidences truly happen. I can't say they don't, but rarely. And so when you see things like this, I'm not going to run off and, take the conspiracy theory and, with October 31st being Halloween and so forth and, the date, all that. But it's interesting, isn't it?
Very interesting.
Since so many of us, I do believe particularly this country that was founded on Christianity. I mean, it's, well, there's different ways of looking at, I'm not going to start getting biblical.
There was some high society there in D.C. woman. I can't remember her name. You can tell I don't watch high society, and those that are the elitist. It was a popular name, but I can't remember it. But she came out and said that that's what she is an occultist. Mm-hmm. And that was just this week that I saw it anyway.
Heck, and of course... Half of your new singers, the Katy Perrys and so forth, and she comes from I think her father is a preacher, and, they just embrace the other side to become wealthy, to become known, to become popular, they sell their souls. That's been going on for a long time.
The devil tried to get the Lord to do that up on the mountain in the 40 days. I can give you everything. You can have it all. Mm-hmm. Pretty much he said, I already do. that was my shortened version. Anyway, we are going into a break. We do have more to talk about. We do when you talk about what's going on here in London. They've had an attack, and Kim Jong-un has been at it again, and just so much unrest. But we do have security, and we do have that in the Lord. But 717-300-1218 is the number to call to join us. It is Friday, 717-300-1218, and Melody and Beth Ann will be right back.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Gold and silver is tremendously undervalued. Global demand vastly exceeds mine supply by more than 60% annually. There is little in the financial world more certain than a coming explosion in the prices of gold and silver. The U.S. dollar continues to lose value and respect as the world's reserve currency. Our nation faces challenges on many fronts, and a day doesn't pass without another economist bringing forth warnings of impending economic calamity. There has never been a better time than right now to acquire physical gold and silver. Discount Gold and Silver Trading was founded on the principles of truth and honesty. We believe in providing a quality product, quality service, and most importantly, competitive pricing. We provide all forms of precious metals, including American gold, silver, platinum, and rare investment and circulated coins. Silver bars, rounds, and 90% silver bags are on hand for the silver investor. Gold self-directed IRAs are available. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, that's 1-800-375-4188.
Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a reestablished Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
Years ahead of the dominant media, FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
And we have returned to listening to Power Talks with Melody and Beth Ann in the morning. And the number to call to join us in conversation is 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. Well, as we were going into the break, I mentioned Kim Jong-un is at it again. He shot up another missile, and Melody and I were talking about that during the commercial break. We do a pretty good show during commercial breaks sometimes.
And you know what's interesting is this bucket bomb that went off in the London train is getting 24/7 huge press, and they're really kind of ignoring the North Korea firing another missile, which I find interesting. Because to me, I think that missile coming out of North Korea is far more important. Not that it's more important, but
well, I know that the president came out because of this attack in London, and he is asking for larger, tougher travel ban. Even more so, I guess now. It says President Donald Trump took to Twitter on Friday to denounce a terror attack that took place in London, urging authorities and others to take more proactive steps while calling for a larger, tougher, and more specific travel ban. Another attack in London by a loser terrorist, he says. These are sick and demented people who were in the sights of Scotland Yard, must be proactive. Trump wrote in...
I consider them psychopaths, you know.
He said demented. He did call them demented.
Losers, but that always just cracked me up. But, when they have a mayor that's a Muslim...
You got to put your hand up on your forehead when you do that, loser.
When they have a mayor that's a Muslim, I mean, you have to really look to the government as far as why are they not really cracking down. I mean, London has... that they're serving more than any other country in the world. I mean, they got a camera every 2 feet. Certainly this bucket bomb, people were injured and so forth. And, it was a homemade bomb. About 22 have been injured on that London subway. But on the other hand, last night you have North Korea. They're firing, and not to take away from the injuries of those people, but you have North Korea firing another intermediate range missile over Japan into the northern Pacific Ocean. The U.S. and the South Korean military said it's the longest ever such flight, meaning that they can hit Guam. And so we have a couple of callers coming in. So we have Donald Trump. He's threatened the North with fire and fury. I said earlier this week, you had the UN pass new sanctions on North Korea. It was just a matter of time until he came out and did another one of these deals. So let's just go to our first caller. We have
Joe in Arkansas.
Joe in Arkansas joining us this morning.
Good morning, Joe.
Yeah, good morning. You were mentioning something about doing something on history. And what I find particularly interesting about history is how the same kind of situations, the same kind of concerns come up over and over and over in history. And especially if you look into some not very well-known history, there's so much history that's happened, and there's only so much that's reported in the popular conception of history is only reports so much of it. What I find particularly interesting is to look into some of the history that's, not all that well-known, that's available still, but not all that well-known. And I'd like to mention 3 things in particular that I've learned from studying and looking into some not all that very well-known history, and that's relevant to today, that shows how things repeat over and over again, still today. And so the first thing is that there was a wonderful historical novelist named Taylor Caldwell, and she wrote some novels based on earlier American history. And one of the things she wrote about was, I think it was a situation in the late 1800s when factory owners wanted to bring in French Canadians because they would work cheaper than the native-born Americans would. And she talked about how the congressmen, even from the districts where the factories were and where the Americans were going to lose their jobs, she wrote about how the congressmen betrayed their constituents that voted for them and everything like this, less than the American workers. And so that's one little-known historical... What was her name again? Taylor Caldwell. She's a wonderful historical novelist.
Okay.
And she writes so vividly, like when you read one of her history novels, you feel like you lived in that time, because reading her novels. Yeah. And another along such lines of little-known history is Henry Carey was an outstanding economist in the 1800s, and a very well-known economist then, and apparently very influential. And today, hardly anybody knows about him, but he wrote a book called The Harmony of Interest, which was originally published, I think, 1850, somewhere right around 1850. And he wrote about how during periods of free trade, there was a lot of conflict between the native-born Americans and the immigrants for jobs, because there weren't all that many jobs for people around. And he said during periods when the United States has strong protectionism, high tariffs on imported stuff, then there wasn't this conflict between Americans and immigrants for jobs because there was plenty of jobs for everybody. So another bit of little-known history that's relevant to our time. And then another thing that I've been kind of finding out recently is that the Civil War was... apparently there was a lot of influence from Europe on getting the South of the Vatican and the Bank of England and maybe some of the other great powers of Europe were interested in breaking up the United States because they wanted to weaken the United States. They were alarmed at the way the United States was becoming a power greater than any of the great powers of Europe, and so they wanted to break up the United States, and they also didn't like the Monroe Doctrine, the great powers of Europe, France and England and stuff like that wanted to go and colonize there, and the United States was preventing them from doing that. So that there was a lot of influence from Europe on egging on the South to secede. So that's another little bit of little-known history. Generally, we tend to think of the Civil War as just strictly an American thing. So, yeah, it's particularly interesting, I think, to look into the history that's, not so well known these days, but is very relevant to our time.
Somebody told me a couple of years ago that over in Great Britain, certain people still call us the colonists. The colonies. They still haven't let go in certain circles. So I thought that was kind of funny when we've, been through so much. And that doesn't surprise me that there was a little outside interest in the Civil War.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, some of the old people when I first came to Arkansas, some of the old people around here still called Oklahoma the Indian Territory.
Well, history is very interesting, and it does repeat itself. And people don't change. There's with the immigration and the money, greed, and all that goes along with some of the policies that are passed in legislation. In general, my grandmother used to say there's no new sins, just new ways of doing them. And it's the same thing with politics. It's not new. And that's why in The Patriot, in the movie, he said, why should I trade one tyrant 3,000 miles away for 3,000 tyrants 1 mile away? And I think that's what we've ended up doing here in the...
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Bye.
You want to go to Neil from Missouri. Neil, how are you doing today? Good to hear from you.
Well, calling you about your discussion on First Amendment rights, there's a critical right which isn't specifically enumerated in the First Amendment, but the U.S. Supreme Court has determined that it falls within the penumbra, in other words, within the shadow of the First Amendment, because without this right, you can't exercise any of your First Amendment rights, and that's the right to travel. Now, the right to travel was so fundamental to the Founding Fathers could not conceive of a time when the people would give up their right to travel in this country, which most people have done. The few of us who haven't given up our right to travel are heavily persecuted because the U.S. Supreme Court, as early as, I believe it was 1913, in Packard versus Banton, said that without the right to travel, you can't exercise your other First Amendment rights. Now, the right to travel, everyone has the right to travel on the public roadways of this country and to carry their goods thereon. But every single travel case that's been filed with the Supreme Court has been lost because the people who were challenging the law weren't exercising their right to travel. They were using the public roadways as a place of business. I think the first case, Packard versus Banton, was a case where a guy was running a taxi service in New York City. And they said, you don't have the right to use the roadway as your place of business. The state can regulate it. The state can absolutely refuse to allow it if they want to. They can tax it as heavily as they want to, but they cannot tax your right to travel on the public roadways. Now, because the people have given up their right to travel in this country, they're paying huge amounts of taxes they don't owe, simply because that's been, lost, and the public pool system doesn't teach it anymore.
Okay. Well, I know that...
Now, here's the first problem. People don't look at, when you're charged with driving without a license, the first thing you need to do is look up what the definition of personal property is. Because when you go and you pay a personal property tax on your vehicle, you're telling the state that you're going to use that vehicle for business purposes. Personal property is defined by at least 3 statutes in the state of Missouri as property which is held for or used for business purposes. If you're not using it for business purposes, it is a personal possession or consumer goods. It is not personal property as defined by the statute. Now, once you've paid that tax, they catch you on the road with that vehicle, you better have it tagged, insured, licensed, you better have a driver's license, and you better have your seatbelt buckled. Because all those regulations go along with the state's right or authority, not really a right, it's the authority to regulate business enterprise on the public roadways. Because otherwise you're just a trespasser. You know, the public roadways are there for the right, so that people can exercise the right to travel. The public roadways are not there for people to use as their place of business.
All right. It does get a little complicated, although it was meant to be simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is quite simple when you get to the bottom of it. When you read the definitions, you study the case law. The Supreme Court has over a dozen cases. You know, there's Packard versus Banton, there's Stevenson versus Binford, Frost Trucking Company versus State of Illinois. It just goes on and on. And there's at least 25 state Supreme Courts, including the state of Missouri, which have quoted Packard versus Banton on the right to travel cases. But every single case that has reached the Supreme Court of Missouri or the U.S. have been cases where people were using the roadway as their place of business. And those of us who are exercising our right to travel can't get the Supreme Courts of the state or the U.S. to hear a right to travel case. And so they continue to persecute us.
Well,
and tell us that we're not allowed to be on the public roadways unless we have a license and tags and insurance and all the other garbage that goes along with the regulation of criminals that are trespassing on the public right-of-way. And that's what the definition of license is. License is permission to commit an act which is otherwise illegal, unlawful, a trespass, or a tort. Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, we're going to let you go. Neil, thank you so much.
Thanks, Neil.
That's another reason it's so important to be educated. We have Art from Illinois. Art, how are you today?
Good morning, Beth. Good morning. I wanted to know if you guys ever saw the documentary called The Shadow Ring. Have you ever seen that?
The Shadow Ring?
Right.
I don't think so.
Don't think so. I have.
You need to see that video. It's by a man named Austin Green. I believe it's on YouTube, but I got it from Joyce from the Power Hour when she was. That video is a very informative documentary. It's about 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's called The Shadow Ring by Austin Green. You can see the full documentary on the YouTube, last I heard, but this is a video that the government doesn't want you to see.
Okay. All right. I've got it down. Add that to my repertoire by things I need to do.
Yeah, but this is a must-see documentary. Must-see. It's a 100-star documentary in my book.
Okay. All right.
And,
the Shadow Ring.
Yeah, by Austin Green. The Shadow Ring. The Shadow Ring.
Okay.
It's all about what you guys. It's all about it's about what you're talking about right now.
All right.
It made when I first saw it, that's my mouth dropped. It freaked me out. So I think it'll do the same thing to you and Melody. And Melody, this will be an interesting one for Melody too. That was my comment this morning. And you ladies have a beautiful day, and it's a pleasure talking to you.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Okay, bye.
There was I get videos every day that are sent to me. I don't get time to watch them all the time. You know how that goes, Melanie. That there's so much information out there, and you do have to kind of sift through it. But there's so much information out there, and it's so important to, I like to say, educate and activate. But like we were talking at the beginning of the show, it's sad that so many Americans don't even understand what the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or what the Declaration of Independence and what those things all really meant, and how they're falling into this trap of socialism and big government. King Government Incorporated is what I like to call it. But
yeah, I looked it up. I seen where basically it includes the. He does a lot of interviews with, there's commentaries from G. Edward Griffin, Aaron Dykes, Patrick Wood. It shines a light on the secret powers that control the money supply and manipulate the world into war. So, it's, we'll have to check it out and give a review.
We will.
And I don't know if it's a book. I always prefer books than videos. I'm not sure if this is a book or not.
The shadow ring? Or
yeah,
he said it was a video.
The video, but lots of times those videos are originally books.
Oh, okay.
So, but hopefully it's a book, but if it's not, I'll still watch the video. I just prefer reading than watching videos.
Well, you need my job.
I do a lot of reading,
Well, no, I don't get a chance. People send me their books constantly, and I love it. I mean, I love that they trust me with them, and to sit down and read everybody's books, I'd never have any hour for the show. I mean, I just get so many books. I got another one yesterday in the mail. Not little books either, great big thick books. And somebody sent me, and we're going to be talking to him one of these days. Now, that might be interesting. He's got a textbook, and he sent it to me, and it is a beautiful hardbound book, and it's I'm supposed to get back with him, I think, tomorrow. Next week, I think we're going to talk on the phone. We were talking, and he got interrupted, so I said, well, I'll be here next week more than I am this week. I've had several afternoon appointments, and I see they're coming up again next week. It seems like when you're working all day long, the only time you can do personal business is during the day as well, because the nights are just gone as well. But anyway, it's a textbook, and it's on American history. So it's going to be a good book, I believe.
Okay. Well, what do we have that's next? We talked about the missile over Japan.
And the travel ban, and
well, it's interesting because we're basically talking globalism. We have Donald Trump. He's going to take the center stage. President Donald Trump will be taking the center stage next week at the UN. And it's funny because it's not funny, but you have Obama. You have Obama following up with his little global summit in Chicago after this get-together in the UN with world leaders next week. You have the crisis with North Korea. That will probably be discussed the most. You have the future of Iran nuclear deal and some other things that are going on. So Trump will deliver his first address to the annual General Assembly, high-level debate.
When is that?
It's next week.
Next week.
There'll be 100. It's next Tuesday. It kicks off. It's going to be 129 heads of state and government are set to attend. You have the French President Emmanuel Macron. He will also make his debut. He talks after, not Clinton. He talks after Mr. Trump. So, there's not quite sure which direction President Trump will go in. He's expected to play to a domestic audience by reasserting the themes that have made him popular at home. Diplomats are not ruling out some signs of a shift on global climate change. So we'll have to see if that pops out of there. But I think he'll do excellent, because that's one thing that he does when he gives speeches. He does have great speech writers. And when he gives speeches, he usually does a good job, and he does play to the audience well. What fascinated me when he was campaigning yet, and he gave a big speech, and I want to say it was in New York. He was finally in New York, and that's when he talked about the buildings and how he got started with his dad, and I think he mentioned the ice rink there, and he was in his element. But when he was done was what interested me. I saw him pick up his notes, which were all handwritten, and put them in his pocket. How many campaigners do you know that wrote their own speeches or had it handwritten? They say that he prefers a handwritten note. If you ever send him a message, just write it down on a little piece of paper. He prefers handwritten notes. But that was interesting to me. But yes, he does do very well, especially when he's in his element. He'll be in his element there in New York, won't he? Yeah. I hope he's not too much in his element, considering he's at the UN. That's the thing. We don't want him. We don't want him to be in his element at the UN. And we don't want him to be part of the UN.
I'm kind of getting a kick with the volleying back and forth with the DACA and the wall with Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Schumer. But I'm getting a kick out of the stupid grin Schumer has on his face, and they're batting this back and forth, and Trump says there's been no deal and there will be a wall, and I say DACA, it should be DACA, I guess, even though it's an A. Anyway, it's I'm getting kind of a big kick out of it because then one of Trump's people, Dr. Gorka, I saw him tweet something that Schumer had said, and that was the particular article from, I think it was, might be a Breitbart article, but it might have been News with Views that I can't remember which one it was, but Schumer made the comment that, he's got this goofy grin on his face, and Dr. Gorka's, he tweeted out the article, but his comment on the tweet was the art of the deal. So he was implying that Nancy and Schumer might have got snookered where they think they're the ones that did the snooker, and so I guess time will tell. We'll see what happens.
I don't believe either party got snookered. I mean,
I don't believe anything got done.
Nobody got snookered.
I think the American people get snookered enough.
Yes, that is true. That is true. We just can't forget who these peoples are. It's still about It's we have
Nothing
to see what
accident in politics either. Nothing happens by accident in politics. I got a big kick. I know you don't like to talk about Hillary Clinton, and I'm going to throw this out there because I got a big kick out of it. She's become the Rodney Dangerfield of politics, because she's claiming now that she got no respect from Bernie. Bernie didn't give her any respect, and so I'm calling her the Rodney Dangerfield, the female Rodney Dangerfield. Only she's not funny. She's not really very funny, but she gets no respect from Bernie.
Is that what you wanted to say about Hillary?
Yeah, that was it. Is that okay?
That's fine. I thought you were going to bring up about when she was interviewed last night and they showed the panda video.
The panda that died?
No, the panda that was looking over the little baby and it sneezed and scared its mama.
Oh, I didn't see that.
No,
I missed that.
It was Rachel, whatever her name is, Rachel Maddow. And but there was a theory behind it. But when you read the headlines everywhere, it's just like, she interrupted this interview with Hillary Clinton as a insult, but it really wasn't. And so, but I thought that's what you were going to bring.
Well, there was I don't remember the name, but they were talking about a panda that was that passed away, and the panda was they said it would have been 100 years old in human days or something. Anyway, it was a beloved panda that passed away, and I don't remember the name because I didn't know it personally. We're going into a break. Your calls are welcome at 717-300-1218, 717-300-1218 in Melody and Beth Ann. We'll be right back.
The Civil War did not end slavery, but it did put over 8 million black and white Southerners into the bondage of poverty. The Kennedy twins, authors of the best-selling book, The South Was Right, have done it again with their latest book, Punished with Poverty, The Suffering South. Did you know that slavery lasted 70 years longer in Mexico?
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it. Nations have fought for it. It has been traded. It has been borrowed. It has been purchased. It has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host, Melody Cedarstrom, right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit DiscountGoldandSilverTrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free, 1-800-375-4188. The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
I scan the news 24/7, and these just popped out at me. And earlier this week we were talking about how the SNAP program has been reduced, but yet there's still 41 million people that are on them. Why are they going hungry? And this is kind of a follow-up about global hunger, how it has risen for the first time in a decade. And global hunger levels have risen for the first time in more than a decade, affecting 11% of the world's population. You have to ask yourself, we're a wealthy nation. There's a lot of poor nations, and I've seen the waste that goes on in this country when it comes to food. The farms have been subsidized. They don't send tomatoes if they have a little bruise to the grocery stores because people, we don't want any bruising on our tomatoes. They just get thrown in a compost pile. And 30-40% of the food from the farms are just wasted. And I'll guarantee you that's probably, maybe not as strong in other places of the world, but I'm sure it goes on in other places other than so there's just waste. And it's a shame when you have people that are going hungry and around the world. 815 million people were hungry, 38 million more than in 2015. There was 5 agencies that did this global assessment, and of course this was done by the UN. And you know what they blame it on? This is my problem. They blame it on conflict. Yeah. The U.S. is involved in 7 different wars. They mention Yemen as one of the countries where they've seen how can they farm? How can they feed their people when they're getting blown up? It's just like, for what reasons? They blame climate change. Well, we all disagree on that. And economic woes. Here we are told that the world is just fine. The European nations, our nation, the stock markets around the world, the Asian markets, everybody's doing great. So how can you blame economic woes as part of the issue when it comes to people going hungry? Unless, of course, the economic conditions that they brag about really aren't as good as they say it is. And then again, that's just, it's just, you can't keep everybody from going hungry, but, it's just the waste that
there is a lot of waste, and a lot of restrictions and regulations, like you say, the bruised tomatoes or whatever the case may be. I know that they throw, I can't remember what berries it is that get thrown away. They're only allowed to sell so much. And if they raise extra, they have to pitch it.
Yeah.
Well, and then they say we have hungry. It's kind of like Mom telling me I'd eat my peas. Then they say we've got hungry people out here. So why are we doing that? And if we aren't able to raise the food to feed these people, then why don't we have truck patches in the medium and the highways? I mean, come on. We are one of the wealthiest nations as far as natural resources, and we can do it. America alone can feed the world.
Yeah,
if government restrictions would get out of the way.
And but you know what? It's not even the restrictions. We import more than we export.
I know.
We import more food. Why? We shouldn't have to import anything. I mean, it's just like, are you kidding me?
Are you going
Let's
to this isolationist idea?
It's the subsidies. It's the farms. Look what they've done to the farmers. Look how difficult they subsidize these wealthy farms. You got Monsanto. You got all these other multinational farmers. Look what they've done to the. Anyway, that's another topic. That's another story. But we're talking about.
It is another topic, but I think the American people, my listeners are in that particular area. That's where they are. They're on the farm, and they are the farmers. They are the ranchers, so they do know what's going on, and they're just like any other industry that's being taken advantage of. There's very few independent farmers anymore because Big Corp has taken it over, and
it's all by design.
All by design.
It's all by design, folks. So it just doesn't happen. It's by design. It's not by design by the American people. It's by design by hey, let's take a look at this. Canada's Competition Bureau. Did you know Canada had a competition bureau?
I did not know that.
An arm's length agency that is funded by the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government, almost to the tune of $50 million annually. Do you know what they do? They investigated, this is what they have done, they've investigated 3 organizations that have been accused of denying mainstream climate science for over a year following a complaint from an environmental group. It was a 14-month probe that ended in June, citing available evidence and the assessments of the facts of this case. These 3 groups were accused of making false and misleading claims about climate change, including that the sun is the main driver of climate change, not carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide is not a pollutant.
Well, we know it's not a pollutant.
And that's all they were saying. So this Canada's Competition Bureau investigated these 3 groups. It doesn't say if they were on the radio or whatever, what they were expressing their views and so forth. They're just talking about it. And a complaint was launched in December of 2015. The Eco-Justice told the National Observer it would press the Commissioner of Competition to refer the matter to the Attorney General of Canada for criminal charges against the denier groups. These are people that are just denying there's global warming.
Or confirming that carbon dioxide is not.
Yeah. And they were going to press criminal charges against these groups. 3 of them.
What's the title of that? What's the title of that article you've got? You don't know.
I don't keep the titles. I just print the article. But it was I'm just Google Canada's Competition Bureau.
Okay.
Would be the and I'm sure all the information on that would come up. So again, they're. Look at our politicians who make false and misleading claims. Wish we could sick the Competition Bureau on them and perhaps make them.
Well, that's what Al Gore wants. He wants everyone to be punished if they're not a global climate change believer. So we're not that far from it.
No.
We've got the EPA, and I'm hoping that things are going to get better. I think in some respects they've done a few things, but we don't know everything that's happening in the bureaucracy behind the curtain, so to speak, like in the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But I know that that's one thing that they had wanted to do, and Al Gore was pushing it.
Well, Canada
to punish anyone who's not a believer.
Canada obeyed.
Canada is there, huh?
Canada is there, but it's all part of that sustainable, and with the hunger, the sustainable development, the UN backing, and it's globalization. It's global government, global money, global religion, global. You can become a global citizen. there is one way that you can opt out of that system, and the only way you can do that is if you're financially free of that system. Sure, we have to be in it a little bit to work, to live, to run a business and so forth, but if you convert your fiat dollars into some real money, it gives you a freedom that no one else does.
That's right.
Or those that keep their fiat currencies. You have financial independence, and that is so important. And but gold gives you your privacy. And when we're talking about, I also wanted to talk about this Norway Prime Minister. He was appointed as a new World Economic Forum president. And what I found interesting about this report, the guy's name is Borge Brand. He was announced today that he was appointed as the World Economic Forum president. This is a foundation that organizes a high-level global economy event every year in Davos. Well, you'll hear us talk about Davos all the time on Financial Survival. 1-800-375-4188 for discount gold and silver trading. But what I found interesting about this is Davos was created, this World Economic Forum was created in 1971 by German economist Klaus Schwab, the Geneva-based World Economic Forum. Well, something else happened in 1971, and that was when Nixon closed the gold window.
Yeah.
So, folks, if you think there are coincidences out in this world, there really aren't. It's all by design, and here's just another item to confirm.
And we are out of time and out of week. So you have a great weekend.
You too.
When Sunday comes along,
enjoy your turkey and ham day tomorrow.
Ham and Turkey Festival, and take a moment on Sunday, everybody.
Yeah.
To remember Constitution Day and try to read through it. The original, anyway. It's not that long. It's not like Obamacare. So we are out of time, and we hope that you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday morning.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.